What common sense is actually wrong? Tilt your head back during a bloody nose. I get bloody noses all the time, always have, and the amount of times I'm just sitting there minding my own business with a tissue to my nose and somebody, usually older adults, walks by and tells me I should tilt my head back. No thank you, I don't want to flood my throat with nose blood, mum. Just ask them why and see if they can explain. I always thought the tilt your head back was just so you don't drip on things. You should spend 2 months' wages on an engagement ring as a marketing slogan. I heard an ad on the radio today. Some jewelry shop was offering 5-year payment plans for engagement rings. What a great way to start your marriage, 5 years of extra payments. I wonder how many people have 3 years of payments left after their divorce. I lived with a guy who was in this situation. Extremely depressing. That people are good eyewitnesses. We aren't. Our perception of things sucks. We are prone to so many biases that we aren't even aware of. If I grade papers on an empty stomach, I will grade them lower than if I am not hungry. And I will never admit that to be true. Even though it is. I was told a story by my forensics teacher a few years ago. It's been some time since I've heard it, so some details are fuzzy. My forensics teacher was going out with friends one day. After a day at the mall, their car was only one of a few in the parking lot. It was late-ish at night, so they all hurried to the car. As they were about to drive away, a drunk guy came up to the car and pulled a gun on them. Keep in mind that they all saw the dude's face. They got away fine, and reported the incident to the police. When asked to describe the perpetrator, all 3 of them gave a different description, despite the fact that they all saw the same guy, at the same time, from relatively the same angle. Human brains are weird. Now think about how many people are behind bars only based on eyewitness testimony. That is a terrifying thought. I'd like to encourage everyone to look at the story of Ronald Cotton, 60 Minutes piece. He was convicted for rape on eyewitness testimony combined with a bad alibi, and later exonerated with DNA evidence after serving 10.5 years in prison. The victim claimed to have focused all of her energy during her attack on remembering the details of her attacker's face, yet still picked the wrong person in a lineup. The state of North Carolina only compensated Mr. Cotton $110,000 for his wrongful 10.5-year incarceration. These days, both he and the victim have become friends and outspoken advocates for eyewitness testimony reform. These days, both he and the victim have become friends and outspoken advocates for eyewitness testimony reform. Well, at least there's a silver lining. Do not, ever, wait 24 hours before filing a missing persons report. If you have a reasonable suspicion that something happened to someone, call immediately. In medical school, we're taught that common things are common and that when you hear hooves, think horses not zebras, meaning that we should always assume the most obvious diagnosis. Medical students almost always jump to the rarest disease when taking multiple choice tests or when they first go out into clinical rotations and see real patients. Yep, and it's not just medicine. How much of it is eliminated with "have you tried turning it off and on again? Is everything plugged in?" But sadly, this does mean that when you've got a truly complicated problem, you have to slog through the simple solution talk. The harder you brush, the cleaner your teeth get. All you're gonna do is cause gum recession. Edit, I guess this is a good platform to share dental hygiene tips. Brush with a soft bristle brush for 2 to 3 minutes. Don't do side-to-side motion, make small circles on the surfaces of the teeth, flick away from the gum line with short strokes, and vibrate the toothbrush near the gum line at a 45-degree angle from the tooth. Electric toothbrushes are great, they're less technique sensitive and you just hold it over a tooth for 5 to 10 seconds without back and forth motion. Don't stick your toothbrush near your toilet for obvious, yet never thought about, reasons. To minimize poop ingestion, stick it in a drawer or get a cover for your brush. I was 40 before my dentist told me to take it easy brushing my teeth. I thought it was normal having to replace a brush once a month. The recommended time is 3 months, but not because you wear it out. Just because that shit's nasty, a little rinse isn't gonna clean that toothbrush out after you use it. Opposites attract in regards to relationships. Most of the time, they do not. Just because you're not fat doesn't mean you're in good shape. I've been vegetarian for 15 years. Everyone thinks this means I eat healthy. I don't. My diet is mostly pizza and pasta and whatever microwaves faster than it takes me to eat it afterwards. My best friend is vegan. My best friend is also a big curvy woman. My best friend cannot roll her eyes hard enough when she hears people ignorantly proclaim that fat vegans don't exist because vegan healthy thin. I can give you a list of candy and junk food that's vegan. Vegan does not necessarily mean healthy. Vegan just means there's no animal byproducts or ingredients used to make the food. Edit, rip, my inbox. I'm working on reading replying. Edit part 2, there are lots of high-calorie foods that happen to also be vegan-friendly. It's a common misconception that vegans typically eat clean and lower-calorie foods. Not true. The whole point of my comment is to point out that there's a lot of junk food that most people don't realize is also vegan. As others have pointed out, there is a sort of Venn diagram crossover between people who eat healthy diets and people who eat vegan, but the two do not have to intersect. My best friend happens to be vegan for the ethical reasons. She doesn't want to support the inhumane meat industry or animal testings of animal byproducts in beauty and body products. My vegan roommate ate Oreos probably at least 2 to 3 times a week. I believe you. Oh yeah. Oreos is one of those mainstream junk foods I learned was vegan. There's also a bunch of main brand sugary cereals that are vegan. Wonka candy has a bunch of hard candies that are vegan. Most Wendy's have separate fryers for their meat products, so their fries and onion rings are vegan friendly. Taco Bell can make vegan friendly burritos. There's a bunch of not healthy food that just happens to be vegan. I will say that my best friend and her fiancé, since they live in California and have access to less expensive avocados, do have a habit of eating tortilla chips and guac a lot for dinner. Probably not the answer you're looking for, but the notion that darker roasts of coffee are higher in caffeine content. They're not. The caffeine gets cooked out the longer you roast the coffee bean. The lighter the roast, the higher the caffeine content. Edit, lots of folks replied about the difference in caffeine content between roasts being negligible and discrepancies between the density weight of the coffee bean when roasted. Read some of those replies for clarification. My point is dark roast more caffeine. When I worked at the gas station this guy is like, which coffee is the strongest? And I said, in flavor or caffeine content. And he said both, and I told him to do our medium roast and he said no, I want the dark roast, and years later I am still bothered because he thinks he's right. He's off somewhere in rural Minnesota thinking he's hyped the duck up on his sludge coffee. And I hate it. Why would he ask though if you're just gonna ignore the advice anyway? I assume he meant give me your strongest coffee, as in which of these coffees is the darkest roast. But Coffee Guy literally asked the dude if he meant roast or caffeine content. And now he's out there in ducking rural Minnesota thinking he's cranked off some goddamned useless sludge. You don't need to wait 30 minutes before going swimming after eating. This was just invented by public pools to stop people bringing food into the water. Or by parents wanting to take a nap after lunch before having to keep an eye on their children again. My grandpa told a lie when I visited him and my grandma in Florida. He said that the Florida law was that you had to wait 3 hours before getting in the pool after eating instead of the 30 minutes back home. He wanted a nap in the middle of the day. As a native Floridian, the least believable part of that lie is that Florida would regulate anything. Put ice on a burn. Do not do this, it can rip the skin. Do put the burn under cool water immediately. Edit. Lots of people are giving advice in the comments, but cool water is listed on all of the medical websites including Mayo Clinic and WebMD. They now recommend lukewarm water, as cold water can irritate the burn. It's not irritation. Hot skin is still elastic, and shocking it with cold makes it contract and take on a deformed, and more painful, shape. Reddit told me earlier today, fish skin work well on burns. I'm not sure how I feel about this. Common sense says sun isn't out and it is cool outside, you don't have to worry about sunburns. #X200B, worst sunburn I ever got. I remember reading that 80% of the sun's harmful rays escape through the cloud layer. Source, a poster in my dermatologist's office. Distance makes the heart grow fonder. #X200B, psychologists actually show that it's the reverse, which is why LDR are very hard. #X200B, out of sight, out of mind is more accurate. I think this is an accurate observation in short term for someone that you see so often that if you are apart for a few days then you actually miss them because they're part of your routine, Think parents who read you a story every night but have to travel for a day or two for work or a family emergency, or friends at school you talk to on the daily about everything and then fall in sick, or so you have dinner with every night who goes on a business trip for a week. Technically you miss the interaction until a new routine settles in.